Lovely morning to you. Thank you so much for starting your day with us on Morning Spring and Western Spring Television, where we say it as it is. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning right here from the beautiful city of Osogbo, where we're reaching you from the WSTV Center here. And it's time to take you around the world again, helping you to have a deeper sense of what's happening all around you through movements around our political, our dailies, looking at the political scene, the socio-economic front, and helping you to have better understanding of these issues. And then we have our guests later on to join us, help us look at some of the developments in the polity. So there seems to be some conclusion or consensus now, but it remains to be seen if everyone will agree with the direction of these new chaps. You know, the APC settling for Akpabio, Barau, and also TJ Abbas and Kalu. We're talking more about that this morning. But it's good to have you join us. Femi Olanipepe is my name.
Thanks for joining us this morning on the Morning Spring and Western Spring Television. I'm Temitope Ajijola.
Yeah, please.
You can always follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can live stream our shows on YouTube at Western Spring Television. Or you can always watch us on the DTT platform of Start Times at channel 190. Thank you very much again for joining us. Well,
so talk about today's the D-Day, and yesterday the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal started.
Yes.
And also that same yesterday, parties in the disputed Osun governorship election adopted their briefs before the Supreme Court. And so, quite interestingly, the Supreme Court announced that same yesterday that it was going to deliver a judgment today. So everybody is waiting with bated breath across the state today. I'm sure that in the next few minutes or thereabouts, security will be positioned all over the state because we are waiting for the final judgment. So this is the last lap. It's been 3 legs from the tribunal to the Court of Appeal.
Yes,
now here we are down to the Supreme Court. So the judgment will be delivered starting from 2 p.m. today. All attention will be on the Supreme Court justices. I don't understand Justice Nyangukoro, so they will be leaving the law justices to deliver the judgment. So from 2 p.m., just stay with us right here on WSTV and Rave 91.7 FM to get the breaking news. You trust us that we drop it for you as it hot, you know, the moment it comes in here. But that's what the attention will be on, really.
Yes, really. Everybody is looking forward to what the judgment will be. And really, security operatives are already positioning themselves around the state as it is, especially here at the capital. You can see that, yes, today, people are just ready. And we don't know what the outcome will be.
Okay, that's so we all wait with bated breath to see how it will be. Whichever way, Osun is our state. And we should do well to maintain the peace, maintain the tranquility that we so much enjoy in our dear state. But let's go through the papers now at this point. Great, thank you so much. So let's start with the papers. Now we begin with the Guardian newspapers. The Guardian newspaper has as its banner headline this content as aspirants minority caucus reject Akpabio Abbas. That's the banner headline. You can find the full story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And you have the pictures of Godswill Akpabio, Barau Jibrin, Abbas Tajuddin, and Ben Kalu. These are the, do we call them the nominated NAS leadership guys now? But Akpabio is a former governor of Akwa Ibom State. He's from the south. Barau Jibrin is from the northwest. TJ Abbas, incidentally, is also from the northwest in Kaduna State. And Ben Kalu is the current House of Representatives spokesman. And he's from the southeast. But so the NWC of the APC came out officially yesterday, said these are the people who want to occupy this position. But you trust the dynamics of how, the politics play. Some people are discontent and they're saying, we're going to go our own way. We see how it goes.
Yes, as should be. We know that, different people from different parties, and they're going to have different opinions as well. But we'll see how this goes, in the coming days, if anything can be done to usurp, some of these people from the oppositions.
Well, so I mean, a lot will depend on the alliances, realignment in the House and in the Senate, where the opposition swings to, for instance. Yesterday we talked about the fact that we have an almost even split, especially in the House of Representatives, between the ruling party, the APC, and the coalition of the opposition party. So it depends on where they want to swing to. But where I see the problem really is more in the Senate. Akpabio seems to have some influence, being a former PDP member, a former governor, a former minister. Now he's angling, and it was the first person we talked about yesterday. It was the first person to step down for the president elected their primaries in Abuja back then. So perhaps this is a reward for him. I don't know if national position should be shared in such manner. That's another question for another day. But then another strong contender for this position is Orji Uzor Kalu, former governor of Abia State, who incidentally in his own case supported Ahmad Lawan at the presidential primary. So that counted against him. I've heard players of Tinubu saying, no, we can't support him. He didn't support us during the primaries. And also they said at the election that brought him in, while he won his own election, Tinubu was only able to get about 9% from his senatorial district and his state, and said that does not really give us anything good. And they said that's not the case at Akpabio. So a lot of considerations, some of them, I would say primordial, but nonetheless, politicians hold there, and some of those things perhaps led to the arrival of the NWC of the APC, deciding on these gentlemen. But like you said, it remains to be seen if these choices will be usurped going forward, or if we have some more, tricks coming in the days ahead. But let's look at some other stories here. Criminality of jungle justice. Trial by ordeal and imperative of swift punishment of offenders. That's a news analysis. You can get that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Technicalities, time wasting, won't be entertained. PEPC wants Atiku Obi Tinubu's lawyers. That's the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. It started yesterday, the pre-hearing, and I think they are laying the groundwork, for what is to come. If you check the array of lawyers, really, for the different teams, Wale Olanipekun is leading, the team for Bola Tinubu. We have, Levi Ajoku, who is leading the team for Peter Obi, and then, some of the other people also who are leading the team. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, all of them. So it's going to be a month, grilling months. And we had our guests explain to us, give us sort of an explainer yesterday of what the process looks like. 180 days, that's about 6 months, a month. That's already done. Yes, before it crosses over to the Supreme Court as well. But it's good that they're laying standards.
So you know what is expected and what you can do and what you cannot do. I think it's a good one, because it's expected that if you have brought cases before the Election Petition Tribunal, you should have everything covered. You should have your evidences at hand. You should know what your time allocation is and use it judiciously.
Well, so we will keep monitoring. The courts did not rule on the request by the PDP yesterday on whether the proceedings should be beamed live. I guess we'll get a decision on that later on. But just above the banner headline and below the nameplate, reconciliation not mentioned during Obi's visit. Soyinka clarifies, excuse me. I mean, Peter Obi visited Soyinka yesterday, and Soyinka, he's been in the, we say eye of the storm now. With obedience. Obedience coming hot for him. But then, so there were talks on social media about that visit being a reconciliatory meeting. Soyinka said, well, nothing of sort happened. There was no reconciliation anywhere. That it was just a visit. Well, so he's trying to clarify that. You can get more on that story on page 3 And about the Osun election petition that was decided today, tight security. A Supreme Court rules on Adeleke Oyetola's case today. Today. So today is the D-Day.
Yes. And so, as it is with the nation, Osun State is also, you know, in the spotlight.
Yeah,
today.
sure.
Yes. All right, quickly on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, the headline says, Tribunal to lawyers, parties, we must consider Nigeria's peace. And the writers, here's Atiku's petition today, obese tomorrow. AA's case dismissed. And the third, Lalong barred from representing Tinubu. And those are the writers on that particular headline, and saying that Tribunal is telling the lawyers and the parties that they must consider Nigeria's peace, which is very
essential, very critical. I mean, whatever we do, put national interest forward, not a personal interest. I mean, this sort of warning or advising or admonition them to not make comments or engage in practices that could exacerbate the current crisis in the land, and also perhaps because their supporters will be watching and monitoring quite closely, and you know, anything, any untoward comment, any unguarded statement could just inflame the passions, you know. And so I think it's just right that the tribunal is making such a plea to the lawyers. But I'm interested in why Lalong was barred from representing Tinubu, not because he's a serving governor, you know. We'll see. So we have 4 cases now left. Action Alliance case has been dismissed. Yes. Was actually withdrawn. And so we have that of the AAP, the APP rather, the Action People's Party, the Labour Party, that of the PDP, and one other party, you know, left there, you know. So those are the cases right now before the tribunal. Yeah. And Atiku's petition will be heard today. And I want to believe that we're going to get a decision also on if the you know, if the cases will be transmitted live. Yes. You know, I mean, if the proceedings will be transmitted live, we get a decision on that also
today. All right. And just below that story, reps reject NCC's 700 billion naira request to close coverage gap. And that story is on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And on page 10, Jay's Bank posts 9.9 billion naira earnings in first quarter. And on page 11, Osun Governorship, Supreme Court decides Adeleke Oyetola's fate today. We're waiting for that. And to the bottom strip of the paper, APC National Working Committee ratifies Tinubu's candidates, Akpabio for Senate, Abbas Speaker of the House of Representatives. And that's on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And just below the nameplate, gunmen invade Kagarko Emir's house, abduct 7 grandchildren and 6 others. We still have gunmen and bandits on the rampage.
Very disappointing, very horrible. Grandchildren.
That's an Emir's house. What happens to
the ordinary
houses of the ordinary citizens? Yes. But that story is on page 17 of the Daily Trust. And on page 20, ahead of commissioning, Dangote says Nigeria to gain $20 billion from refinery.
Well, so I mean, it seems to me that our entire future, our entire aspirations in the energy sector is hinged on the Dangote refinery. And well, I do hope that it succeeds, but if it does not, God forbid, you know, it's going to be a lot of problem for the Nigerians.
Yes.
You know, we seem to have halted all other plans, inched it on the Dangote refinery succeeding. It's going to be commissioned before the end of the month. Like I said yesterday, if it's certain that they've done all of the checks, the leak tests and everything as you do in engineering works, then perhaps it's guaranteed that subsidy will be removed. But it's a private sector player. But My worry is what happens to other competitors. I'm aware that Bua, Samuel Rabiu, the owner of Bua Cement, is also planning to build his own, refinery. But I'm worried about someone alone dominating that space, becoming a monopoly. It doesn't make well, because the fact that our own local refineries aren't even working means that we are likely going to pay more for these when Dangote comes on stream. The good thing is that it frees up very much needed forex for other sectors of our national economy, and then a lot of other good things, employment in that axis. But Dangote would definitely sell at what it obtains at the international level.
And what exactly would benefit?
Yes, because it's a private player, and so. But if we now have other refineries of that magnitude coming in, like the Bua refinery,
then we could have a balance.
We have competition that could drive prices down. But in the absence of that, Nigerians should be ready to pay some more. And depending on who you ask, a number of figures have been bandied around as to, prices. What could be the final price of petrol eventually? Some saying, we as high as 600 naira. Wow, how do we survive? But perhaps when you get to that bridge, we cross it.
Yes. And to the last story there on the Daily Trust, Media Trust appoints Mudashir as Deputy General Editor. That's all the story we have on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, so let's cross over to the Punch newspaper now. This story, the leading with the tribunal story, the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. Tinubu, Atiku, Obi's legal battle commences. For the riders, PDP, APM's petitions pre-hearing holds today. LP, Obi's case Wednesday. Tribunal warns lawyers, says those who deserve justice will get it. Okay, so the last party I was looking for the other time is the APM, the Allied People's Movement. So just 4 petitions are before the APP, the PDP.
So both parties are having their pre-hearings today.
That's for PDP and the APM. And Peter Obi and the Labour Party will have their own case tomorrow. So the tribunal is warning lawyers, is saying those who deserve justice will get it. So that's the banner headline at the front page of the Punch newspaper. Okay, and just above the nameplate, National Assembly, APC picks Akpabio Abbas. That's on page 2 of the paper. That's common to all of the papers we're reviewing today. High duty vehicle imports crash by 128%. People are no longer importing cars because the import duty
is high. There was a time the statistics came in and it was too high. I was wondering how people were still doing it, to import vehicles at that rate. But now it has even crashed by 128%. It's really on the high side.
It is. Well, and so it's for me, a mix of policy somersault and not well thought out policies. Because there was a time that we're talking about, favoring homegrown, locally developed vehicles, but we really have the industrial manpower to do that. To talk about empowering car manufacturers here in Nigeria, car assembling plants in Nigeria.
Yes, so or even relatively them.
Yes, if you look at the purchasing, parity, the purchasing ability of the average Nigerian is weak and it's low. So as much as Nigeria has a population of around 200 million, the number of cars that Nigerians buy on an annual basis is far, far low to what South Africans buy. So for South Africans is like 1/3 of Nigeria in terms of population. So it speaks to the purchasing ability, the economic power in the hands of the average Nigerian and the average South African. So South Africans are able to buy brand new cars. We are not able. I mean, so if you count, how many people can afford to buy a brand new car? And so most Nigerians who ordinarily want to go through, buy cars from Cotonou, you know, Tokumbo cars. But so it speaks to your ability. And that's the same thing with some of those large retail groups, you know, who sell luxury products. How many Nigerians are able to afford their products? So we may have a huge population size, but is a huge population size rich enough to make such purposes? And when you also disaggregate the data forward, you look at what you know, the NBS released some time ago about the fact that the average Nigerian spend over 60% of his earnings on food alone. So you have you left with 40%, 40% for shelter, for housing, for clothes, for wears, and for other things. So where is the remaining cash for you to play with for luxury? Because in this case, cars become luxury. Yeah. And
then those who do have the purchasing power do not favor Nigerian made products. I mean, you find them wanting to get other brands outside of the country. They don't favor what we do here. And it might be, you know, we might not, you know, fault them sometimes. And that's because some of these locally made products do need a lot of, you know, upgrade. And that's because probably they don't have enough, you know, resources to develop as much as it should be. But there are lots of things tied to that, really.
Well, so this story also on the front page of The Punch is about Soyinka. We read, gave you that earlier on. Obi's visit is not about reconciliation. That's according to Soyinka. You can read more on that on page 19 of the paper. Below the main picture, the picture on the front page of the paper, and just below the banner headline is Osinbajo presents discharge certificate to Transcorp Power. I think that story is about Transcorp officially transiting to a fully private company. If you remember the origin of Transcorp, it was during the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo, who envisioned having a strong Nigerian player, you know, on the international scene. You have the likes of the MTN groups, the South African group that plays on the international scene. So he envisioned that we should also have a company that will be big, or be, you know, a conglomerate, an industrial behemoth, you know, that plays big on the international. And that was what gave birth to Transcorp. I think it's been doing well since then, acquired a number of assets in the hotel and tourism. But one of their biggest assets is the power plants. And that was why, I don't know if you follow that story of this individual, Femi Otedola, Anthony Elumelu, you know, trying to outdo each other on Transcorp shares. That's because it's a juicy, very profitable, you know, conglomerate, and their power plant is one of their most rewarding assets. So interesting that we're making some progress. This certificate, I think it's another feather to the cap of Transcorp, and is also like another level in their development.
Yes, it is.
And so about Osun State, it's at the bottom strip. Adeleke Oyetola, hopeful Supreme Court delivers judgment today. Many people did not expect. Some of the lawyers are expecting that the law justices would announce that they will communicate the date to them. And I also spoke to one of the lawyers involved in Abuja yesterday, and he told me that they were prepared, actually, that because he knows that they could even just take a recess after adopting after the lawyers had adopted their briefs, go into their chambers and say, we are coming back to deliver judgment that same day. You know, I said, I mean, what a shock that will be if we are not expecting it. So it could have been either of three ways. Either the justices, after listening to the arguments of the parties, after the lawyers have adopted their briefs, go into their chamber for a recess and come back and deliver judgment. They will now give reasons at a later date. Or, in this case, they now say, okay, we're giving judgment tomorrow. So it remains to be seen if the judgment also will be delivered alongside the reasons, you know, today, or if the reasons will also be given, you know, later. Bandits kidnap 40 Kaduna worshippers, 9 Emir's children. Very unfortunate.
Really?
You know, read that earlier on. from the Daily Trust newspaper, but this time 40 worshippers. I understand they were in church. Yes. During service.
Yes.
In
only about 15 of them were able to escape with their lives.
It's unfortunate. And the AFG plans rescue of Nigerian domestic workers in Iraq. Oh my goodness. So Nigerians go to Iraq to work.
Nigerians are everywhere. Really. Very much everywhere.
I mean, Iraq is just recovering from war.
I mean, nobody knew that even Sudan will be, war-torn at this point. But yes, Iraq has always been, known for, their war all the time. But then the fact that Nigerians are still there, leaving the country. And I think that was what, brought about that, the word from the federal government yesterday saying that there are lessons to learn for the Nigerians. When you leave your own country to seek, greener pastures elsewhere, you should really look to the quality of, wherever it is that you're going to settle, and if the place is quite safe or not. But like I said yesterday, it's a lesson for all. It's a lesson for the federal government. It's a lesson for, even the citizens. And you can see that the federal government too is going to be dragged into this because they will need to rescue these Nigerians from Iraq now.
Well, so I mean, it's also instructive for those who like to travel, at all, by all means, no harm traveling, but be wary of where you go to. Some of these Middle Eastern countries, what they practice there is essentially slavery. So we've had cases in Oman, cases in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, of some of this, because they go there to work as domestic aides and they maltreat them, sexual harassment, some of them, killed in the process. They're maltreated. And so I'm surprised that there seems to be a steady stream of Nigerians also now going to Iraq. I mean, the ones we know before now are Bahrain, Oman and Saudi Arabia, in the UAE. But it appears that some people are now going to Iraq. I mean, it beats me.
It's imperative to note that people in their desperation just tell some of these people who come together to put their documents together that they just want to go anywhere. They don't care where it is. They just want to leave Nigeria. And that's what leads them to places like this without really considering.
Yes, and not having, not thinking it's true.
Yes.
To look at the pros and the cons and what could be, what may not be, really. Because that desperation that you talked about seems to be the driving force for many.
Many now.
When you're too desperate, you end up, falling into wrong hands. You know, for instance, really? I've heard stories of some of these victims of domestic who are domestic aides, suffering from sexual harassment in Egypt, in many parts of the Arab world.
Yes.
And there was a time that the BBC did a report that actually, I saw that report that revealed that some of these guys are actually even traded on the market like you would trade goods. So it's like a slave market.
Yes.
And so some of them are raped. There was one that came back into the country with a kid or two that couldn't identify who the father was because, they've been maltreated. And we need government to also do more. Nigerians need to be more circumspect, not rushing some of these things. And we also need Nigeria, we need Nigerian government also perhaps to push more, and be more circumspect and not going into issues like this. We need the Nigerian government also now to step in and help, like this one, evacuate them, take them away, free them from their slavery that they've actually entrapped themselves.
Like you said, truly, Nigerian government needs to speak out on all of these issues. Tell other countries to, play safe with their citizens. It's very important to do so.
Well, so I guess that will be all, but let's see if we can bring in one more paper before we bring in our guest this morning. I guess that's the last paper from your end also.
Yeah, we have the Nation newspaper. Yes. The Nation newspaper has its headline as APC picks Akpabio Abbas as Senate President Speaker, and the riders Barau Kaduna nominated as Deputy Barau Kalu nominated as Deputy Senate President and Deputy Speaker, and 72 non-7 senators back party's choice. And Umahi Southeast to get compensation, and Ojikalu writes National Working Committee. Like you said, Ojikalu too, has been in that race, and then somehow Akpabio is the choice now. And beside that, just to the other end, CIN authorizes foreign
Okay, so I mean that's incidentally not clear. I mean, the producer will need to work on that better. But there's some perhaps move on to some of the other
stories.
Yes.
Well, just above the nameplate, I don't know obedience, says Shoyinka, and Obi visits Nobel laureate, and that's on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. And we've heard before where he said emphatically that was not a reconciliation meeting. And now he's saying he doesn't know obedience. And probably he knows Obi. He only knows Obi. Obedience.
Not obedience. Yes. Yeah, I hope this does not get him into more trouble.
Well, on page 27, 40 worshippers abducted during church service. 15 victims escape. That's on page 27. And on page 25, 134 kidnapped victims from FCT councils rescued in Kogi, and 400,000 youths participate annually in NYC program. That's the story there. And below the nameplate, Presidential Tribunal strikes out Action Alliance's suit. Pre-hearing continues. Tinubu lots allow judicial progress
to run its course. Okay, and then so bottom strip of the paper, tight security in Osun ahead of Supreme Court verdict. We said that earlier on. And there's another one about Osun, about Lautech doctors on strike. We don't know why. Perhaps we get more of that. Yeah, Sudan, 3-week-old baby among the 5th batch of 132 returnees. Well, a baby given birth 2 or 3 weeks ago
during the crisis.
The war,
Yes.
Well, let's check Daily Independent before we go this morning. I'm bringing our guest. Of course, common to all of the papers we have is the story about the 10th National Assembly. APC endorses Akpabio for Senate President, Abbas for Speaker, Jibrin Kali for Deputy Senate President, Deputy Speaker. Senators-elect Kik insist on producing own leaders. Tokwe said that earlier on about the drama that awaits us, and see if these other guys usurp the decision of the party's hierarchy. May 29 handover date sacrosanct, says Defense Minister. That's a hurt woman, because some people have been pushing for saying the president should not be sworn in, but some people have saying, well, let reasons prevail. If you are saying that and you're asking for anarchy, you're asking for chaos, because there will be a vacuum. Are you saying we're going to extend the tenure of the president, Buhari, or who becomes the president after May 29? And presidential election petition court, Atiku, PDP seek live broadcast of hearing. I guess that will be determined today. And some other headlines here. Buhari ask NUPRC to supervise all crude oil export terminals. That's on page 7 of the Daily Independent newspaper. And the NUPRC is one of the entities that came out of the unbundled NNPC. And energy infrastructure, Transcorp Power gets discharge certificate from FG. So that's transiting from a public, it makes the public-private venture to a now solely private venture. Basically, okay, 13th month salary for Edo workers. That's interesting. Another batch of 129 Nigerians fleeing Sudan arrive in Abuja. 134 kidnapped victims rescued in Kogi. And Presidential Election Court dismisses AA's petition against Tinubu, warns against undue delay with frivolous motions. A Nigerian Navy to reduce high insurance premiums on ships. Okay, so that's the Daily Independent, and that's what we end with the papers this morning. We'll be back after this time out with our guest.
Yes, okay.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever expounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on to Morning Spring, and it's coming to you from Western Spring Television, where we say it as it is. It's time to bring our guests here. This morning, we're looking at the state of the nation, looking at, well, the PEPT that started yesterday, looking at the appointment, or we should say the conclusion, the selection of the leadership of the National Assembly by the APC NWC, the party's leadership, and the dynamics. I mean, some people are saying, well, these may not be what eventually will be the leadership when the House and the Senate inaugurated in June. But to help us have an understanding of some of these issues, we are joined live on the line via Zoom this morning by Mr. Dapo Ogunwusi, who is a veteran journalist, is a former editor of the Tribune Titus, also a legal practitioner and a policy analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Spring this morning on Western Spring Television, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you. Well, so, I mean, let's start with the PEPT, the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal that started yesterday. Tell me, you as a legal practitioner, as a policy analyst, what are your expectations about the process?
Well, I think the stage at which they are now is basically pre-hearing, where they try to discharge applications and objections before going to the hearing proper. And the prescription of the Electoral Act is that after hearing such applications, you have to take them together with the rest itself, with the subject matter itself. So you don't expect rulings. The only case that called for ruling yesterday had to do with the Action Alliance application to withdraw. So naturally, the court had no choice than to dismiss it and strike it off its cost list. Be that as it may, don't forget that there is a 180 days allowed. There are 180 days allowed for that particular exercise. And even though the chairman of the panel made it clear that there was not going to be any room for delays and so on and so forth, well, I guess there is enough time for them to do anything they want to do. I think today they are taking the article pre-hearing, and tomorrow they take OB. And that is how it goes on. Then they will have to fix dates for proper hearing, which we expect to be sometime next week. Well, we also saw on TV the huge crowd of lawyers very senior and eminent lawyers, filing into the court. And it was quite a piece of drama. But you see, the important issue I like to underline here is that in all these matters, the institution that is really on trial is the judiciary itself. I'm not talking about issues like cases that had been decided before. I'm thinking about the credibility of that institution in the heart and mind of the average Nigerian. And that is what makes the whole circumstances the whole situation very grave. I believe very much that the judiciary will need to work doubly hard to escape with its credibility intact in these matters. You see, there has been quite a lot of trial in the public domain, hearing all sorts of evidence adduced and front-loaded. And you ask yourself, if you are a judge or a member of that kind of panel, what will be going through your mind? So I think it's probably the most important period so far in the life of the Nigerian judiciary.
So, what about those who argue for a live transmission of the proceedings? The PDP made a formal request of that yesterday. As we talked about it before now. So perhaps alongside the pre-hearing of the PDP's petition, maybe the law justices will give a decision on that also. But from your own perspective, what do you make of it? Just asking for a live transmission of the proceedings.
Basically, a court process is a public process. There shouldn't be anything in the way of that, because ordinarily, as a journalist, you can walk into the court and write, anything that is before the court, except in certain cases in which the court decides to sit in camera. And there is nothing to justify sitting in camera in this case. So I will be amused to see the court refuse that kind of application. And I'm going to find it very amusing.
But do we have a precedent in that respect?
Oh no, you see, there's a basic rule which I have already underlined, that a court process is it's like you are sitting in an open theater. You see, justice must not only be done, it must be transparently seen to have been done. Even though, as regards political cases, there haven't been much of such drama. It hasn't been much of such drama. But you would remember that in a number of cases, specific, parts of the procedure had been heard almost live before. It happened in a number of cases in the past. Although what they're asking for now is like some kind of a football commentary sort of thing, whereby you won't miss any minute. Well, I think it will assist the court, in sustaining its credibility. And I'm beginning to wonder how the court will go about such a request. But I would be mightily amused to see what comes out of that kind of prayer.
All right, sir. On one of the faces of the papers this morning, it says that Simon Lalong, governor of Plateau State, was barred from representing Tinubu. Could you please give us an insight into that, as to why that happened?
Frankly, I'm not conversant with the details of that, and I don't want to go into issues that I've not mastered. I don't know what the complaint about Lalong is, and I don't know anything that stops him from representing. But if it is as a lawyer, then there are issues regarding that, because as somebody in public office, it is difficult. You cannot take part in such things, independency of that office. I know that one for sure. If that is the rule, then of course the decision is right.
Okay.
Well, so, let's move away from that, because we can't dwell on the nitty-gritty of the cases before their Lord Justices, so that because it's already before them. We can only just look at the periphery of some of the matters around it. But let's look at some of the other issues in the nation as we speak. So the APC came out yesterday to sort of officially announce its position on the zoning of the offices of the National Assembly leadership for the 10th NAS. And so Godswill Akpabio, former PDP member, former minister, former senator, current senator, former governor of Akwa Ibom State, was settled for as the Senate president to be deputized for by Barau Jibrin, and also for the Speaker of the House, we have Tajuddin Abbas from the Northwest Kaduna State, and Ben Kalu, who is also from the Southeast. Let's ask your first impressions of these pairings and these candidates, before we look at some of the other dynamics to this.
Well, I think the choices that are being speculated at the moment seem to take care of some of the undercurrents involved. First of all, the Senate president cannot but be a Christian. There is just nothing else they could do. And I was finding it strange that the characters from the Northwest, the two of them being Muslim, that is Yari and Jibrin, were thinking of becoming Senate president when the president-elect is a Muslim, the vice president-elect is a Muslim. Now we now have Senate president coming in as a Muslim. I knew that was extremely inelegant and completely disdainful of the demography of the country. Be that as it may, I also believe, because it has always been that when you have a president from the north, or from whatever zone in the north, okay, let me unlock that. Let's start from Obasanjo. Obasanjo started with Evans Enwering. Enwering was also from the south, but from the southeast. So automatically, the southwest and the northeast were locked out of that race. So it then remained northwest, north central, southeast, south-south. In the southeast, I believe there is sufficient lack of trust in the polity of the Southeast. And I never imagined that they would pick a Southeasterner, even though I think it would be fair to do that. However, Akpabio was the only outstanding figure from the South in the APC. So he stood head and shoulders above everybody. Now, another thing you could look at is the experience. There's something they call ranking parliamentarian, somebody who has been there for multiple times, you know. And I think Akpabio fits that bill. Although Kalu could also have been considered from the southeast, only for the fact that the whole thing looks unsettling. When you look at the kind of baggage involved in the political leadership that is coming in now, and the Kalu's case has really not been fully discharged at the courts. I think he was able to get off the rap by some kind of technicality. They never really went into the case itself. So it's a bit worrisome that you then have that kind of character again as Senate president. So I think they have opted for the easiest way out. That is my own opinion. And then don't forget, APC has 59 out of 109. I think the other parties together have about 48 or so. So it is still a commanding majority, even though it was much greater in the last assembly. The only thing I worry about is the kind of ambush that took place in 2007 when the Integrity Group just overpowered the arrangement made by the party. And a group of members of the House of Representatives led by Dimeji Bankole came up and was able to amass cross-party votes to put the Meji in the saddle and discard with whatever the party was thinking of. That is the kind of fear we have now, because look at it this way. If, for example, the Muslims want to flex their muscles and the Christians want to do the same thing, so you have a problem whereby you could have people coming together in total disregard of party affiliation to take sides with other forms of affiliation. What the majority is likely to be in such a regard, I've not really sat down to work out the scenario. But it's also at the back of everybody's mind that it's a possibility. And I also ask myself, could the North go for broke and say, look, if you don't give it to the Northwest, there is no way out? That's also a possibility, whereby there will be an amalgam of northern senators, and maybe they will find a ragtag set of southerners to go along with them. Don't forget that the last time there was any serious contest for the Senate presidency was in 2015, when Saraki emerged against the interests of the powers that be in the APC. There was no doubt that Tinubu did not want it. And a number of people around Buhari did not want it. In fact, I have it on authority that when Saraki was to take over the mantle as chairman of the National Assembly and Senate president, there was an attempt by some elements within the APC to use the police to storm the National Assembly and prevent that particular inauguration. I can tell you that confidently because it actually happened. So you can see that it has always been bedeviled with a lot of acrimony. And APC as a party, just like PDP too, has never been a good manager of success. They don't act in unison on any important issue. They tend to be discordant, and they have underlying what I would call underlying affiliations that tend to overrule the interests of the party once in a while. And to be honest, that is healthy for the democracy. But you then ask yourself whether they are actually practicing democracy, because that's a bigger part of the question.
Well, so, I mean, we should ask, because we seem to have a history of, you know, the party wanting one thing, or the establishment wanting one thing, and then renegade, if I can put it that way, those who have their own intentions. So, for instance, now, the party has settled for Godswill Akpabio as the Senate president. Yes. But you see, Orji Uzor Kalu is written letters to the NWC and some other stakeholders. So he seems to be spoiling for some battle. Do you see some of these elements usurping, if they are aligned with the opposition, usurping whatever interest the establishment has? And if you also look at the numbers in the House of Representatives, it's quite closer than even that of the Senate. If the opposition decide to align and take a sprinkle of APC members to their side, it could be something else entirely. Do you see that happening? You know, if you consider our past history, you made reference to the integrity with the Meji Bankole, what happened with Tambuwal. Do you see it happen again with Eastern NAS?
It is quite possible and probably likely. And the APC has to be constantly on its toes to be able to survive that kind of ruckus. As a matter of fact, it is justified, because look at these characters that are coming up and tell me if there are factors other than political expediency that excuse them. I think it's just an arrangement that they keep putting up. You stay here, you stay there. You know, no new ideas, no new concepts. You see, the whole thing, when Dimeji Bankole came in, I was glad that maybe we are beginning to see the face of the future of Nigerian politics. But it dissipated. It dissipated under the jackboots of the old order. And I still wish and pray that we will have politicians who anchor after the interests of their constituents and the progress of the country. Because as you can see, democracy is very brittle. There was a day that officers of the DSS stormed the National Assembly to prevent the parliamentarians, the senators, the reps members from having access to their offices. It was on live TV. That was a military coup. And I'm glad that the DSS DG paid with his career for that incident. But one thing I worry about is supposing we didn't have an acting president. Supposing it was Buhari in the side who would claim he didn't know anything. Could they have taken over the National Assembly, beating up the lawmakers? I mean, it's as good as a coup. I mean, coups don't come better than that. And my information is that Buhari wanted to countermand it, but the intervention of international, figures stopped him. So it's so embarrassing, all these things you keep seeing around the National Assembly. There's no doubt that the National Assembly as it is today is just another branch of the executive. And there is a lot of profit in keeping it that way. They are able to award themselves big contracts, and they call it community, what do they call it? Community development or what have you. All these things they do on their own.
Constituency project.
Yeah, constituency project. You see, when the legislature dabbles headlong into principally executive functions like that, it is as a result of the breakdown of the functioning of the executive arm. I mean, how can lawmakers be awarding contracts in the name of the nation? How? I mean, that is not what they're there for. But you have this arrangement whereby, you rub my back, I rub your back, give us $1 billion each to throw around in our constituency to show them we are doing something. They go and build bridges, they go and build halls, but those are executive functions. As for a conclusion, I will tell you straight away that there's likely to be greater drama in the next few days regarding the leadership of the National Assembly.
So, if I ask you to do an analysis of these candidates, I mean, so assuming without considering that these men will eventually be the faces of the leadership of the National Assembly, so what do you make of their contributions? Are these round pegs in round holes? Will they lead an independent legislature for the interest of the Nigerian people? Or you think that they will be subservient to the wishes and interest of the executive?
Basically, I think the last person to lead an independent legislature was Shola Saraki. No, Bukola Saraki. You see, I said it earlier, that the legislature is seen as an arm of the executive, even in its functionality. Anything the president wants, they'll give it to him. Then whatever they want to, he will give it to them. That is what characterized the last 8 years or so. I do not see any change in that, except by some dint of luck. They are able to elect a non-APC Senate president. And that, to me, is a tall order. It's going to be full of acrimony, and there might be something beyond that. Because the people coming to power now, they are carpetbaggers. They don't take prisoners. I think we are in for quite a ride. You better get your popcorn.
But I mean, if you are to check them individually, on their merits. Akpabio, he served as Minister of the Niger Delta. He's been former governor. He's called, in fact, one of his colleagues called him the uncommon, I think that was Ganduje, jokingly said he's the uncommon governor, uncommon minister, uncommon senator. Now he's going to be the uncommon Senate president. Individually, what is he bringing to the table?
Well, I think he's bringing into the table participation from a cardinal part of the country that could have been ignored. In fact, the entire southeastern arm of the nation would have been shut down in political participation, except maybe they decided to pick the speaker or the SGF from that zone. So bringing Akpabio up improves inclusion. And Akpabio has had quite a career, and he has paid his dues. He's a ranking senator. He has been governor before. He has been minister before. So it's very difficult to imagine that anything would be taken beyond him. What I worry about concerning this character is how much of the system he represents. You see, the turkeys don't vote for Christmas. That's the problem. It's just part and parcel of the establishment. And I think Nigeria needs to start thinking beyond, out of the box, to look at ideas beyond what we have always entertained, if we are really serious about making progress.
But do you see the legislature, being free of the influence of the executive arm of government?
Most unlikely, with the features that are beginning to develop. Most unlikely. Most unlikely. We are going to have a super ministry called National Assembly. That's all.
A super ministry.
Yeah, taking their orders from the presidency. That is most likely going to be.
But what then should be the template for relationship between the executive and the legislature, in a normal situation? Because some have said it shouldn't be a cat and mouse relationship where they fight all of the time, and it should not be one being the Lord, another one being the serf, one subservient to the other. What should be the real, normal situation, relationship between the executive and the legislature?
And that is basically what it should be, but I want to take you back to Nigeria's political history. We started democracy with the Westminster model, where there was institutionalized opposition. The thing is that when the government wants to do something, the first it considers is how well it will sit with the opposition. Apart from the fact that the opposition is not in the majority, that is why they are in the opposition. They are a veritable instrument of blackmail. But in the presidential system, the way we practice it, the party trenches are not deep. Then not only that, we seem to see things in terms of going along with the executive and giving the executive support in inverted commas. Look, we borrowed the country out of its life from 16 trillion to 77 trillion. That is our debt profile. It was this National Assembly that kept on approving every penny. Even in cases where they did not really know what the money was to be used for. It was this National Assembly that allowed the purchase of 11 Tucano planes, military planes, at 4 times its market value. It was also done extra budgetarily. There was no environment from the National Assembly, there was no approval. They just took $500 million and bought these planes, and they were not delivered for 4 years. So you see all these scandalous things going on, and you ask yourself, how much more would these people do? Well, we may not have the power to do anything about it, but we must continue to talk about it. We cannot keep quiet.
Well, earlier on I asked you to do an individual analysis of the personalities who are likely going to be occupying the National Assembly leadership position. You've talked about Godswill Akpabio, but let's look at Tajuddin Abbas, who is been penciled down as a speaker, barring any last-minute, drama from his colleagues. Some people said it comes with a stellar credential. He's a PhD holder, and he's a ranking member as well. Like, this should be his third term in the House of Reps, or the fourth. In the 8th Assembly, he had the highest number of bills, and also even in the 9th Assembly. He had 74 in the 9th Assembly, and he said out of that 74 bills, 21 of them were assented to by the president. He also had quite a number, in the other assemblies. Does that speak to someone who is dedicated, who perhaps is well experienced in the art of lawmaking, and should be a plus in leading that critical institution?
You've got to give that to him. But you see, when you are a team captain, you may no longer function as a good striker, because you have to worry about other members of the team. He's no longer going to be able to generate or originate bills. He has to moderate the assembly. And I don't know how good he is in that leadership expectation. But as for his record, I think he has paid his dues. And I think he's on record in the answer more frequently than any other parliamentarian I know in history, in the history of this republic, contributing to debates, making motions and things like that. Many of his motions were also individual motions. They were not motions brought down by the party, because that is critical. If the party thinks, oh, we should buy 16 new jets for the president, they just give it to anybody to file and then raise the motion in the House. But this person generated most of his motions on his own. So there is evidence of a high work rate. I can only hope he sustains it in this higher calling.
So what about Benjamin Kalu, the man penciled as his deputy? He's the current spokesman of the House. Some people have described him as a fine gentleman, also open, accessible, but perhaps that's because of his role as a House spokesman. What do you make of his own candidature as well?
Yes, I can see that there is an intention to create a forum for easy access. Because that fellow you just talked about is a quintessential PR man. He is able to mix with people, he is able to communicate properly, and I think that will make the management easier if he's given the right source of rules. I heard of that and I just realized that his choice was his choice is altruistic in terms of his ability to hold the different ends together and keep people properly informed. And in the political conflicts and debates that are going to ensue, it will be a very good instrument in the hands of the management of the National Assembly in getting people together and to keep things moving. But there's a problem. If you apply such skill to the positive end in the interest of the people, everybody will applaud it. But there is still a question mark as regards the entire setup. And that is what worries me. And I want to say that I hold these people suspect until they start to prove themselves otherwise. Because I don't really think that we are really serious about moving forward. I think the whole idea is about settlement. Just structure things in a way that makes life easy for the ruling class. I mean, they are going to look for more loans and things like that. And well, let's hope that the new president will bring a breath of fresh air. I mean, notwithstanding the dispute going on in court.
Well, so, you know, the drama that many Nigerians expect in this evolving process is that it's going to be at the House of Representatives. Young, dynamic, you know, since 1999, if you check our history, most of the drama has always been from the House of Representatives, right from Salisu, you know, Brahim, down to Gali Madna Abba, you know, down to the current occupant. Now that the APC national leadership has settled for TJ Abbas and Ben Kalu, what do you think? Do you think the likes of Adodo Gua and Idris Wase will take things lying low? Do you think they'll be planning to put spanner in the works of the APC leadership?
Yeah, it depends, because APC, as I said earlier, has always been good at acrimony, and they manage success very poorly. They may not even get to these positions if there is sufficient disruption in the communication system within the APC. They might look for an independent Senate president, an independent. All these things are possible. They are all on the cards. But I think that going by Abbas and the other Kalu fellow, becoming speaker and deputy speaker, they will have a good mechanism for internal cohesion. But to what purpose that is applied is what I do not understand. And I can also not guarantee they are making the position eventually. Because the Senate president that started the APC government in 2015 didn't come as a result of consensus. It was a very acrimonious position. In fact, if not for support from PDP senators, he would not have made it. So you find yourself in a situation that is possibly analogous to that. But you see, there is so much ground that has been lost by the country. And I imagine that things should go on smoothly, except these people are going to justify my fear that they are only interested in their own ends. I hold them complicit, I hold them suspect to that, and I still wait on them to disprove it.
Okay, so what reforms should we, look forward to in the, in the assembly to give, hope to the common man now, for them to make, good policies across board for the betterment of the nation or the citizens?
Yes, in the first place, there are so many things that the National Assembly could do. It could sharpen its oversight, functions and reduce unnecessary cooperation and complicity with dishonest and corrupt elements in the executive, which I think is the bane of our democratic setting now. They should stop the idea of collecting constituency projects and allowances, and rather supervise or oversight the affected executive bodies. Look, if there's a minister of works and the map of the entire country is in his hands, all you need to do is to get him to do the right thing at the right time without your collecting any percentage, because that's a problem. If they are honest and serious, a lot can be done. You see, I will not hide my fears that the mode of ascendancy of this incoming executive is a cause for worry in its own, because so much bargaining had to be secured, and I think a lot of concession went on, and such a government will be hampered. I'm sure they have already said who will become head of the army, who will become head of the police, at least for the next 2 years. They have already penciled all these things down. So I think there has been a lot of, batter. And that may make it difficult, even if the new president wants to. It may make it difficult to achieve such an end. Then there's also his own, personal health, which has been constructively doubted over the last 1 year or so. I mean, there is a limit to what somebody can do if he has so many issues like that. So those are my fears.
All right.
Well, so, you know, as we look forward to the 10th NAS, it's also important that we look at the 9th NAS and assess their successes or otherwise. You know, the Ahmed Lawan Senate has been criticized in some quarters, has been too docile and too subservient. And some have also said, well, they've played a matured role in maintaining their relationship with the executive. So as they wind down their activities, and we look forward to, you know, the 10th NAS, how would you assess the performance of both the Senate under Ahmed Lawan and the House of Reps under the current Speaker?
I will straight away give them 30%.
30.
Yeah, I will give them 30% because they completely abandoned what was their primary responsibility, which should have been to the people, to make sure the ordinary man does not go hungry to bed, to make sure that our young men and women do not come out to become yahoo, you know, fraudsters or constructive prostitutes. Look, they have killed the hope in the bellies of Nigerians, this last government. And I think the National Assembly is guilty as charged as an accomplice. So, but in terms of being able to maintain what I would call executive legislature amity, well, I'll give them 30%. That is the only score. That it is the only point on which they could score something, you know. So I give them 30% in that. Whatever Buhari wanted, they will go and prostrate and give it to him. So at least we didn't see them fighting each other like Saraki.
I mean, so are you discountenancing Femi Gbajabiamila's efforts? Some said, I mean, his diplomatic efforts in mediating. That's the right choice of word now. In mediating an industrial dispute, you know, with ASU, with the NRD, actually, you know, spoke volumes about the leadership and then about efforts of the Rect, really, to manage the issues at that time, even when the executive failed in building a harmonious relationship with some of these trade unions.
You see, you would wonder why I was laughing. You have to forgive me, because I was waiting for that. The ASU crisis that he intervened in had already spanned 8 months. 8 months of keeping young boys and girls out of school. You need to deduct that 8 months from their lifespan, because it was a period that went to waste. 8 months multiplied by the number of students in all the universities, you can imagine how many years the nation has lost. So Gbajabiamila came in too late. If it had been a proactive system, it shouldn't have been more than 6 weeks before the National Assembly rose to the occasion. And then look at the intervention. It was a colossal failure. It was just a calamity, because all the agreements reached with the university lecturers fell flat. Nothing was ever done. They even lost their wages. So I mean, you can't give anybody credit for that kind of disaster. Look, government is an organic entity. You have to nurture it as if it's a human being. These people take everything so casually. Like, okay, yes, call the lecturers, let's talk with them. And you have 2 ministers, including that Keyamo, behaving like they are just lords of their father's personal estates. They don't see themselves as holding any responsibility to the country itself. And go and look at the list of demands of the ASU members. As of today, there is no single university in Nigeria that is within the first 2,000 in the world. Because we have completely denigrated the standards, we have denigrated the personnel, we have denigrated the logistics of training people. I remember some years ago when I wanted to train as a lawyer in England, I applied to King's College, you know, one of the top 5. I had already got a master's degree and practiced as a journalist. You cannot imagine the epistle I had to write to say, look, I'm an alumnus of a university that has produced a Nobel. I had to write a long treatise before they gave me concessional admission. That is the standard of our education. That is where we are. When I took my degrees there, they said, what is the meaning of this? I said, well, you people started the University of Ibadan. You should know what the degrees mean. You should know what the degrees mean. That is what we have as education today. People are talking of JAPA. Before you can even hold a world-class university degree, you cannot be in Nigeria. There's just nothing that justifies that kind of situation. Our people are very industrious, they are knowledgeable, they are ready to learn. But the system disallows all that. Come and add to that the brain drain in the critical sectors. If you go to a hospital today that is well manned, you have to pay through your nose because all the doctors have left. It is tragic.
Wow.
So you are not talking about midwifing any settlement. You know, he midwifed what I will call a treaty of surrender. It was an armistice that he midwifed. Because even despite the fact that these things were put in black and white, the government just threw everything in the dustbin. I mean, it is so tragic. Completely. So don't give anybody credit for that. You can't wait for 8 months, almost. You can't wait for 2/3 of a year with the children at home and then say you are intervening. I mean, don't waste your passion on things like that, please.
Okay, well, so just before we let you go, are you worried at these recurring pattern? And I think it's been from 1999, if I'm not mistaken. I do not have the actual data, but it appears that each election cycle, the number of new members of the House and Senate that comes in, is higher than those who return. And some have said it affects, it costs, us a lot because we need to start training again. It does not help in building institutions like we've seen in other parts of the world where we have members who've been around for a number of years, and there are quite a number of them, unlike our own situation where majority, I think at some point around 70 or almost 80% of members for a particular assembly were new members, a few of them returning. We've seen this happen again. Is that a worry for you, and does it have an impact on our legislature in any way?
It gladdens my heart that we have that kind of tendency, because it keeps whoever is in the assembly on his toes, knowing that you could be recalled and stopped from at the next attempt. So you see, the only opportunity that people have in Nigeria to check, to provide a check on the leadership of the political system is election. So if elections are held regularly and the people who were there before are removed, it's a good check. Because you are talking of training and retraining them, to what end? What have they been achieving? I mean, let's be real. And these people go away with so much money. Well, if the least we can do is to make things go around, well, at least it's a good feature. Many more families will go to Abuja and ride big cars, well, if that is the end we desire. But I do not regret the idea of these people being removed en bloc or en masse. I wish all of them could be removed, and the political setting itself restructured and reworked to work for the interest of the people. I mean, look, you are complaining about everything. Practically every institution has collapsed. Every institution. People just laugh at you when you complain these days. They just chuckle. Because it's the only opportunity you have is to just talk. And I suspect very soon they may take that away from us too. So that everybody will come zombie. Because it's zombie. Because tell me any institution in this country today that is capable of sustaining democracy and in which people have 50%, no, make it 40% confidence. Tell me. It has been wholesale denigration of the hope of the people. So why should the system be sustained? Let them remove all of them if necessary. And if they cannot go back to their people and justify what they have done for the last 4 years, yeah, they can go back to their old jobs. That's it.
All right. Well, so we'd like to thank you for your insightful analysis today. And we do hope that we get it right in our politics and politicking. But it's a pleasure having you join us this morning, helping us with all of these issues and taking us also, you know, bearing with us your wealth of experience on some of these matters. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you, sir.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I mean, what an interesting conversation we had there. You know, dispassionate and quite an analytical of the dynamics of what we have on our hands. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's interesting. He's a legal practitioner and a former editor of the Tribune Titus, Mr. Dapo Ogunwusi. Is also a policy analyst and a public affairs commentator. What an enriching conversation.
It was. It indeed was.
Well, so that's the show this morning. We'll be back here tomorrow for another edition of the program. Femi Olanipeku is my name.
Thanks for staying with us today on The Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. I'm Timmy Tope Ajijola Odwala. Have a good day.